Welcome to Dr. Tom Meets. I'm Dr. Tom, former vascular surgery resident. I'm now the founder and CEO of Heidi, one of the world's leading AI companies in healthcare. And I'm joined by Christina Farr.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Farr. I am a health and technology writer with Second Opinion Media and an investor from New York City.
In Dr. Tom Meets, we're going to be talking to health system CEOs and tech leaders about how we should build the future at the intersection of health and tech. We're going to be talking to Graham and Joe from MDCalc today on Dr. Tom Meets. I'm very excited. I met Graham about 3 years ago. He came up to the booth. I was a brand new founder trying to figure out what to do. He was always so kind. And MDCalc was a product that I used a long time ago. From I think my first year of medical school to help me figure out risk scores. So not only emergency physicians, both of them, but have been founders for more than 20 years and been thinking a lot about tools for clinicians, which is what I obsess about every day. And yeah, so excited to get their perspective on both what their journey has been like and how things go forward and everything founders.
Yeah, Graham and Joe, both of them just in the industry for such a long time, really kind of paving the way around how to do medicine, how to do entrepreneurship, how to do tech. And both of them, by the way, so worth a follow on social media, yes. Because I think they've really just pioneered this kind of skill set around communication and humor and fun and brought a lot of that to medicine too, which you do not see often enough. So I can't wait for this chat.
Fantastic. Let's head to Joe and Graham now.
Welcome to Graham Walker and Joe Habouch, two of the most fascinating humans in healthcare, both of them physicians, really, really early founders. They started their company MDCalc in 2005, which just feels like so long ago, even though it wasn't that long ago. But compared to all the stuff we're seeing today, they've been in the industry a long time. And I've so much to ask them about, everything from clinician workflows to entrepreneurship to this new HBO show, The Pit, that we're going to be talking about in this episode, because we know Graham had a little something to do with that show. So Graham, take us back to 2005. What made you want to start this company?
I was really just trying to solve my own problems. The expectation at the time, there weren't that many clinical scoreable and evidence-based tools. And so the idea was you just kind of memorized all of them. I thought that was dumb. I saw there were computer terminals everywhere, and I knew how to program. I HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and I said, why don't I just make a website to handle this problem so that I don't need to memorize things? Certainly Joe and I are both emergency physicians. There are things that you must memorize in medicine, drug dosages in critical patients, the ages of vital signs that are normal or abnormal. But there's so much information in medicine to memorize. I thought there's got to be a better place to handle this kind of somewhat esoteric information. So I just started programming and started to build it. Joe and I then met together in residency. We're both emergency physicians, and it really kind of just took off from there.
It's incredible. Did it start off as a website or an app or both? Because 2005, were iPhones that prevalent back then?
There were not iPhones when I started
that's what I thought.
There were Palm Pilots.
Yeah.
There were Palm Pilots. And we didn't have an iPhone app for quite a while because I don't know how to program iPhone apps. We were a website for many, many years, and then finally bit the bullet and developed an iPhone app, and then kind of continued to ride that mobile wave as we're seeing everybody in medicine and in life using mobile phones for more and more as well.
We were a bit late to the app game, actually. We were a website only until 2016 and 2017, and there was an app out that folks were confused with us because they didn't have a website. We didn't have an app. And we finally launched our apps. And I think we had a big shift over to, by 2018, I think we were the main place in both app and website. I think we just took the world of clinical tools much more seriously than anyone else. And we're working with all the experts.
I'm sure there would have been all these ripoffs like MedCalc or CalcMed, or, you probably had to steal a market. Yeah, I found you guys as an iPhone app, I think in 2014, 15, when I was a medical student. Yeah, lifesaver, very useful, very helpful. I always love that you could see the evidence behind the scoring as well as just simple way to just type in the numbers and, get your answer. Yeah, super cool. Joe, maybe tell us your background as well. Before, how'd you get into medicine in the first place? What was meeting Graham in residency? Were you guys running amok? I'd love to know more about that.
So I was, I'm the kid of physician immigrants. My parents are from Iraq and physicians. My mother's a 6th-generation doctor from Iraq, came in the 60s. And I actually didn't do medicine at first. I came up through math. Actually, I was a math nerd growing up. And I did the non-sciencey thing to go to medicine and medical school. And ended up doing an MBA along the way as well, mostly just because I wanted to work on bigger picture problems. I didn't want to just do retail medicine. And I thought medicine has so many areas that you can try to improve. These people with business degrees seem to know how to work on bigger picture things. And then here in residency, I meet this guy who's working on medical calculators and how to make them more approachable to help patients. I said, math, medicine, fixing bigger picture problems, not just retail medicine.
Nerd.
Another nerd like me. We should become friends. And I don't know, we clicked immediately, and the world changed greatly, and we kind of grew with it.
So I'm in the presence now of 3 medicine and maths nerds, because Tom, you told me that you were also a mathematician.
Yeah, so it's a really good foundation for being empathetic and kind. No, I'm just kidding. I
was going to say you all should meet up and do like some formulas or math
yeah.
league competitions.
Yeah.
Solve puzzles.
Exactly. I know your chest hurts, but have you heard of this thing called area under the curve? Anyway, they're super cool. I'm interested. So obviously it's a long time, it's like almost 21 years. How did you think about blending business versus staying in medicine? Obviously you both finished your training, because that was something I always wondered about. Like, I was in the middle of my residency when I started Heidi. I felt like I had to hang up the stethoscope and go all in. How did you guys navigate that balance of like, do I just raise venture money and go all in on MDCalc, or is it always a side project? I'm interested to know how you thought about that.
I think what led to our success is that neither one of us really thought of it as a business first. It was really a real problem that we saw around us, that doctors weren't using clinical tools right, or they weren't using them at the right time, or they weren't learning the nuances on how to apply it right and use it on the wrong patient. And it seemed like low-hanging fruit in order for us to make something that's approachable and trustworthy that physicians could come to and know that they could get the right answer, and know they could learn how to help patients through it. And by being very focused on the problems that we knew for ourselves and our colleagues, this thing grew. So I think our success came because we didn't think of it as a business, and it is a business, and we have to figure out how to make it make money. But, we're used now by 85% of US clinicians regularly, making us the second most broadly used medical reference from what we know in the history of medicine in the US. And I think internationally that's the case too. And it's partially because clinical tools spread across almost every specialty. We've been around for 20 years. And so in our category, in our specific vertical, we are what we are. But I'm glad we didn't think of it as too much of a business, because I think that's what made us focus on just being focused on the right North Star. And that's helping doctors help patients. And if you have more than one North Star, you're going to walk around in circles. So
yeah, I agree.
I agree with Joe. We were always, and we are always still like laser focused on how can we help doctors solve their problems. Tom, this, like you can have 50 decisions you need to make on a patient. And if you get stuck at number 11, that it totally just disrupts your ability to get all the work done that you need to get done. And so MDCalc, kind of helps doctors get unstuck by answering a specific clinical question for them. And Joe and I have just been laser focused on, okay, let's add more scores. Okay, let's review all the scores ourselves, make sure that they're accurate and safe and evidence-based and validated, because we know that if it gets on MDCalc, people will start using it. We have some, stamp of approval that people start believing in the tool if it's made it onto our platform. So we kind of just grew it organically. We have really focused on building a really good tool with a really good UI. There's not like a submit button, because I just hated one extra click. So I built the original version with a JavaScript way that it would just update when you, but without having to click a submit button, to make things just a little bit easier for doctors. And, Joe and I have just been really focused on that problem for somehow 20 years now. It's flown by because life goes fast as you get older. But that's been the focus for a really long time, is solving physicians' problems and helping physicians get through their day.
But I don't want to skip over the actual business model part of it, because at some point, once you've got this incredible penetration, physicians using it, you do want to make some money, assuming, this isn't just a pure passion project. And I think right now in this AI era, we're seeing a lot of different business models develop that really leverage the fact that they have physician mindshare, which is so incredibly valuable, as you all know. But then you see models where it's advertising, right? Like you've captured the physicians, so let's advertise to them. You see models that are recruiting. It's notoriously difficult to recruit providers, so let's monetize that. Then you obviously see the model of just, start with the physician, almost give it away for free potentially. And then the enterprise eventually becomes the buyer, which might be the hospital or health system. So what do you all think about what some of these business models should be? Like, what are the ones that allow you to continue to support that mission of making the physician's life better? And what are some of the ones that just strike you as a little bit icky?
I think the idea of ickiness is one we should all think about it, or let's just boil it down. It's when you get paid for something, you have to be careful not to be biased by that money, right? And where it's coming from. So it is hard to accept money from somewhere and not have a bias, because that money is coming from somewhere. And I think that's really important for us to think about. There isn't a correct business model. As far as we're talking about ickiness and sort of the mission-based and moral correctness of business models, I think we just have to realize money's going to come from somewhere. If the money's coming from the medical system, that doesn't make it unbiased. Actually, the medical system is biased in a whole bunch of different ways, depending on what country, what the payer system looks like, what kind of insurance the patient has, what kind of physician it is. I mean, so there's biases in all places. So I think what we need to do is create systems and structures so that those biases are reduced, so we can have a business model, but not one that's corruptible.
What was the path you guys ultimately chose? Like, I'm sure you thought about lots of different ways to monetize MDCalc, but walk us through like how you got to the ultimate kind of decision and how it all went.
So we actually have multiple business models at MDCalc. One thing that's very important to us is that we're able to keep MDCalc free and broadly used. And so that lends itself to an advertising business model, which is, I would say, in some ways our primary business model, because we're so broadly used. Our free app and website is used by literally millions of doctors around the world, taking care of hundreds of millions of patients a year. But somewhere around, I remember 124 medical systems in the US reach out to us saying, do you have MDCalc for the EHR? That's around just over 20% of the medical systems in the US. That was before we built anything. We said, okay, people want some version of this. If you say MDCalc for the EHR to a doctor, 90% of it's the same in doctors' minds. They know what that means. And there's benefits to that. So we have been building that, and that's gone live at a few different medical centers. And we also have a CME product. So we have multiple business models. In some ways, I think that makes it a little bit better, because we're not just focused on one different business model. But whatever business model someone takes, I think, Chris, you have a really good question, which is how do we make sure we have a business model, but we still stay true to helping patients in a pure way? Because none of us should be in this industry if that's not our main focus, in my mind. And it's to think about that and realize how we could be biased and make sure we have structures to protect against that.
During med school, MDCalc was a passion project. I mean, I would just build it for free on nights and weekends because I like to code and I like solving problems and I like building stuff that doctors use. And like, that's always my sweet spot, is understanding like tech and medicine and fusing those together. And that worked for a while. Like it wasn't very expensive to run a little server. But nowadays, technology is not, in some ways it's cheap. And in other ways, it's like not cheap at all. Like to support an app and a website and an EHR integration, and to pay Apple's, mandatory like developer licensing fee, even though our app is free, like we have to pay for a developer account. That all costs money. And so at some point I realized like, I can keep doing this for free. But that's now running into my ability to like
scale, grow. Yeah.
Scale, well, and yeah. Let alone scale and grow.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, I mean, that was the piece that Joe really opened my eyes to, is like, we have to have some income so that we can continue to build new stuff and add new tools and add and grow our content team so we can review more scores. Like, it's just a requirement to have a way to keep this thing going.
Yeah, my perspective is, I think it depends what you want to be, basically. I think for you guys, it makes total sense, right? Like, these are third-party audited calculators. If you're taking ad dollars from Eli Lilly, it's not going to change how well score is calculated, like, it doesn't really matter. So I think it works. Like, it's a good model. It makes sense. And I'm a capitalist, I believe in, like, money is for goods and services. You make the goods and services better, you should make more money. That's good. But I do think so from my perspective, the reason we will never do it is because I think ultimately Heidi provides care. And so, like, imagine if you guys were sponsored by Eli Lilly in the ED, like, that's just like irresponsible. So even though we may do similar things, like we might have products one day that surface guidelines or evidence or whatever, if I think that Heidi one day prescribes, then I can just never poison the trust, because that's like, it's almost like I think Heidi becomes a provider basically over time. And yeah, so it just depends what you want to be, like, for us, that's a business model we just can't go down, and we find other ways. Whereas if you're strictly in, like, reference materials knowledge, I think it's probably okay. As long as there's, like, guidelines and rules and processes of how to make sure it doesn't introduce bias. And yeah, Google's been doing this for a long time. Yeah.
And so have media companies.
Exactly.
Every time you turn on the TV, it's, pharma advertising to you.
Luckily not here. Yeah.
And Tom, I appreciate that. And I think the really important thing, no matter what business model we take, is not to try to outsource our ethics into our business and say, as long as I'm following what makes money or what the regulations of the government are, then I'm doing what's like, as long as we keep focused on the North Star of how do we help our patients. I think that's really important.
Like, values driven, like mission driven. Yeah. I think it makes sense. I mean, proof's in the pudding, right? You guys have been at this for, I keep saying 15, 20 years, more than 20 years. And yeah, you'd be doing untold good impact. Like, you can't measure it, but it would be the amount of CTs avoided and or ordered thanks to you guys would be innumerable. So you're doing good work. Do you guys think being an emergency, like, how did that influence you having built MDCalc, or like going beyond your company, the state of AI from the perspective of emergency medicine would be interesting to talk about.
Emergency physicians are way overrepresented in AI, technology, companies, and roles.
Graham, you and I have talked about this so much because, as you know, as Tom knows, I do a bunch of work getting physicians involved in venture capital and startups, and it is so weighted. It's insane how many emergency medicine doctors want to get involved. So yeah, continue. But I just wanted to double click on
Co-sign,
that. It's huge.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. My theory is a couple things. One, it's the shift work, right? So we can have blocks of time where we're working clinically and then blocks of time to do other things. Those might be hobbies, or, there are ER doctors that love wilderness medicine and hiking and doing ultramarathons, and other people want to do technology that are a little bit more mathy and nerdy. I think emergency physicians see the problems with American healthcare. Almost every single one of our patients is experiencing some problem where the healthcare system wasn't able to help them. Do we take care of people with unexpected emergencies? Absolutely. But most of our patients are people who are falling through the cracks in some way, who are not getting the attention they need or they think they need. And so they come to an ER. And so we are immediately seeing the problems of healthcare in front of us. And we're also problem solvers. We love to fix things. That's why we go into emergency medicine, is to immediately have an immediate impact and fix problems. And so I think that also lends itself to innovation, and companies is finding ways to address these gaps and these problems that we see firsthand as well.
And I wanted to focus a little bit on the ER too, as a almost like a media spectacle. Like, so many TV shows have been about the ER, literally ER. And now there's a new show on HBO called The Pit, which many of my physician friends have told me is actually a realistic medical show. So think a little bit less kind of romantic dramas between McSteamies and McDreamies, and a little bit more life of a emergency medicine physician in the US today. So we want to play a little clip from that, because Graham, you've been very helpful to HBO, the producers and makers of the show. And then I would love to get both of your reactions to the clip as it pertains to how AI is getting introduced into the ER.
What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's cardiac.
I mean, what do you think of the app?
I mean, it's hard to say without seeing the full thing.
Take a look. Oh my God. Do you know how much time this will save? Studies show you can spend 80% less time charting. You'll get out of here sooner, improving both patient and physician satisfaction.
Oh, excuse me. It says here she takes Risperdal, an antipsychotic. She takes Restoril when needed for sleep. So is that,
AI. Almost intelligent.
It's so dramatic.
I could see some kind of nervous laughter.
I love this clip because it hits on it correctly that AI has a lot of hype and excitement, but there are some real true pitfalls, and we all kind of know it. And as we're taking AI and bringing it closer and closer to the clinical decision in medicine, we have to really take that seriously. It's not about moving fast and breaking things. It's about being really, really thoughtful about all these pitfalls. So I'm really glad that The Pit did that in that clip.
They told me that they thought that was the mistake it was going to make. And I said a couple of things. I said, one, well, maybe it could be doing like language translation, because I could see that being that's certainly a pitfall. Maybe a colloquialism that was mistranslated or something like that. Or I thought, well, maybe it could be like confusing a kidney stone and a gallstone, or like, the classic one in medicine is neurology, the brain, and urology, the kidney and the penis. So they used a medication misattribution instead.
Tom, I'm dying to know what you think about that particular mistake. Could you see that happening?
Yes, for sure. So definitely mishearing medicines is like a really tricky thing to do well. Although I would say in that scenario, almost certainly integrating the medical record almost certainly would have actual medicine context. It's when you're using it like on someone's phone with no context at all. Even if I was listening to the audio and I was trying to type in the medicines, I would probably make errors because I don't know exactly what was said on their shaky mic phone that's under a blanket that, is maybe being muffled. But I liked what you said, Joe, like we have a value called move fast, break nothing. So I think it's just, you have to know when things are high stakes and have checks and balances. So, we have algorithms that do almost like post-market surveillance because we're registered as a medical device. Even just to be a scribe in the UK, you have to be registered as a medical device. So we have to track like likely dangerous hallucinations where basically we look at the transcript, we extract the key medical entities, and then we say like, I now note, are there things that just don't seem to map to this transcript? So in the example, it's like the history, was there anything about sleep or anything about her schizophrenia diagnosis, and why is she on an antipsychotic? And more than likely, like 99.9% of the time, Heidi would have got the guess correct. But sometimes, if we do 2.5 million visits a week, like you don't have to have much error rate to have some clinical incidents. So I think it's one of those things. You just have to be aware of the risks. You have to track it. You have to be reliable and consistently wrong. It's almost like a device with a mark. Like the doctor needs to know, like, how often is this x-ray going to be incorrect? How often is the scribe going to make mistakes? Where are the areas I need to focus when I'm using these tools? And that's on us.
I've been watching the show, both seasons. But this new season, there's a character, I think Dr. Al, I think you said, Graham, that is a new attending. And I think she's kind of supposed to be like a you character, Joe, where she's got like a bit of business acumen. She loves technology. She's embraced it and has used it in a prior life. And then you've got this Noah Wyle character, Robbie, who everybody loves. He's kind of the character that we're all supposed to sympathize with because he's like this kind of old school physician's physician, kind of character that we follow through season 1. And that didn't sit so well with me, that, you know, this new woman who comes in, who's sort of all about bringing technology and all that into the emergency medicine context, and is really thinking about the patient experience. Like, maybe we should roll out some kind of new system so that patients in the waiting room get a bit more information about when they will be seen. And she's also bullish on scribing and is worried about the documentation button. And yet in the show, she's sort of cast as the bad guy. Joe, what do you make of that?
Yeah, well, Noah Wyle is definitely the hero, right, in the show. So I get that they're going to cast him that way, and he's the old school doc. But what you're saying is right. I mean, if you look back 50 years or 100 years in medicine and how things were before we took new technologies and put them in consistently all this time, I mean, we live such better lives because of advancements in technology and medicine, right? They're great. We should embrace them.
We could go back to balancing the humors, you know, like bloodletting and all the leeches, you know. Like it used to be better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It used to be better, right?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And you look back, that's not even that long ago. And you look back even 20 years.
Yeah, it's like there's only 4 fluids. There's nothing else. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We'd be leaching. Yeah. You guys don't do that stuff in Australia.
No. Yeah. Yeah. At the end of my training, it changed. Yeah.
Yes. There you go. Yeah. So I get the point of, you know, being careful about the changes, and we have to be. I mean, there are real pitfalls in AI for sure. But we should embrace technology and figure out how to do it safely. Like Tom said earlier, we just have to not break things.
Measure it. Yeah. Go fast, but slowly sometimes.
Graham, I'd love your take on this new character in the show and the depiction of somebody that in many ways I think is trying to do the right thing.
I love it, Chrissy. I don't know this. I know several of the writers. I really want it to be that they are depicting kind of how some female physicians get treated. That male physicians get to be assertive and female physicians are bossy, and, you know, they're viewed as bossy and a bitch. I think that's what they're kind of portraying. And I think that Dr. Al is going to save the day, and we are all like going to feel bad, like kind of taking Dr. Robbie's side, because we all know Dr. Robbie and we like her. I think there's also something to be said for, like, there is a lot of friction that happens when you start working at a new hospital. There are cultural norms, there are medical cultural norms that are just fundamentally different about how you manage patients. And so I think that's also maybe what they're trying to convey right now is, hey, at the VA where Dr. Al used to work, she did things one way. And at the pit, they do things a different way. And there's not that one way is right or wrong. There's different ways that you can practice medicine that are all still the standard of care. And that it's a challenge as a new attending to figure out what the boundaries are and what you're going to put your foot down on, because maybe something that you think Dr. Robbie does is medically inappropriate or not a good way to practice medicine.
Wouldn't it be killer if Dr. Robbie is like, I'm going with my gut. I'm just going to decompress the chest, and she's like, no, don't do it. The AI says that I think it's a tension pneumothorax, and the patient dies. That'd be great, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
Tom, I think you're right. I literally think that's what's going to happen. And again, I have no spoilers. I don't know anything about the season. But I actually think that's how we're going to be set up, that the AI is actually going to be right, and it's going to make people be open, not that AI is always right, but be open to the fact that Dr. Robbie's gut is not always the right answer.
Yeah, it's sort of like the carpathy thing, like it's jagged intelligence, like it'll get the medicines wrong, but it'll save you from killing a patient or something like that. That'd be a nice, ethically complex, HBO style ending to the series or something.
Yes.
I've been a founder for, let's say, 5 years now, been through the AI dead zone during COVID, and then now like the hype period. You guys have been founders for more than 20 years, what would you tell me about how to run Heidi? You know, how can I be here in 2040 and still be as happy and excited as you guys are about innovation?
I think focusing on continuing to solve physicians' problems. That's always been the calculus, to borrow a math term, that Joe and I have had, that if we can help solve a physician's problems and help a physician to use a little bit more evidence in their practice, that will trickle down to better outcomes for their patients, and more shared decision making, talking about what tools and what options are available to a doctor and their patient. So I think being laser focused on the stuff that is important, it has always led Joe and I toward the right place and the right decisions, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, it's a marathon, so don't cut corners. I mean, what I tell our team is I love this idea that if I have 20 minutes free, I could either play on Instagram or brainstorm some small way to make MDCalc better, and that's going to help a lot of doctors, potentially help a lot of patients, and that wakes me up every morning and gets me going. And we've been doing that for such a long time, and there's such a great satisfaction, even in that sort of incremental, how we can improve and make things better on a day-to-day basis. And if you don't have that, I think, very positive feedback that you're doing good through it, I think it's hard to make it a long time, being an entrepreneur. Because being an entrepreneur is, I mean, Tom, it is hard. Every step, it's busy. And you do one good thing, you look back, it was like, I had to do 5 mistakes to get there, right? Or I had to backtrack a bunch, and it looks easy in retrospect, but it's never easy going forward. So try to figure out how to do it.
All three of you are entrepreneurial physicians, and in some cases no longer practice. In other cases, do you continue to practice while juggling other ventures, but really seeing technology as a way to scale impact. So what would you say to somebody who's in medicine currently, in practice, building a career, but wants to do more, is inspired by all this entrepreneurship around them, is tinkering with the AI and vibe coding on the weekends? What advice do you have for all of them? Is it to leave medicine right away and come join the ranks of the founders? Is it to do both, like you two have done? Like, what do you think is the right strategy?
Also, for context, I've been encouraging everyone to have like a hot cursor summer, because it's summer here in Australia. So I've just been like building all this random stuff and
summer.
But maybe in July, that can be like the US moment, all the doctors should get on cursor.
Chrissy, I think the duality fills some cup of mine. The fact that I can have a larger impact with my companies and I can also see patients, both inform each other so well. I can go to the ER and see a bunch of patients and really come away with a new kind of what I think is maybe a profound takeaway. Like, wow, I never thought of things that way from just some simple patient encounter that I have. And I can also then take that information and apply it to what types of things we should build for MDCalc. Maybe I'm talking to a surgeon that I consult and they have a question. And so I think both sides really make MDCalc a better product and, make me a better doctor as well. So I think it's certainly hard to do both, but it would be hard to imagine doing one without the other, frankly.
Yeah, I agree with Graham in the duality, and I've loved that. I just stopped practicing a year ago. But to the person who wants to figure out how they can contribute to medicine in a better way, in a bigger way, or in a different way than just retail medicine, one thing I would point out, and maybe this is the advantage of getting pseudo old and having lived through a few different periods of time, is that right now the exciting thing that everyone's focused on is entrepreneurship, right? It's like walking into a casino and you hear the jackpots going off. The jackpots going off right now are people who are entrepreneurs and doing things, and they're being lionized. That wasn't always the case. When I was in business school, people weren't trying to be entrepreneurs. People were trying to go into private equity and venture capital. That was the hot thing. That's what I wanted to do. And I dipped my toes in it and I realized I didn't like it. And I'm really glad that I figured out how to face that and convince myself that I didn't want to do that, because I really thought I wanted to do it. And in retrospect, I wanted to be an entrepreneur because of all the things that come with entrepreneurship, despite how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. So one thing I would point out to folks, if you want to contribute, there's a lot of ways you can contribute. You could be a great researcher. You could work for a company. You could work in clinical medicine. You can, it's not just through entrepreneurship. If you're going to do entrepreneurship, make sure, whatever you do, make sure you actually love it. And it isn't because it's the hot and exciting thing. That happens with specialties within medicine too, often, right? There's a certain specialties that everyone wants to go into. And sometimes people go into them in retrospect, they don't know why. It was just the hardest thing to get into.
Yeah, the neurosurgeons or cardiothoracics, you know.
I was going to say the dermatologist.
Yeah, as a former almost cardiothoracic surgeon, I realized it wasn't that exciting, and I liked blood vessels everywhere. I think I've been personally responsible for more people leaving medicine than anyone else I know, and it's because I usually just encourage them, like, do a day a week with us or spend some time. Like, why did you do medicine in the first place? Like, was it something you wanted to do, or does mum and dad pushing you to do it, or like what was like the real motivation? And then people kind of discover for themselves, like, either what you guys do, which is a balance. I do think there's like the rare case of being able to balance both, and eventually I think it consumes you. That's what I found. Like, I was just trying to do both. You know, I could only message in ICU on Slack so many times before I felt like I was like not doing the best job for
and just from a patient perspective,
yeah,
if
exactly.
you were like, I'm going to be cutting your leg off and I only do this one morning a month, I'd be like, I think I'm gonna pick somebody else.
Trust me, it's not that hard. No, I think that's the hard part, is like at some point it's either like kind of jack of all trades, master of none kind of problem, like you have to pick a side, maybe, or it's you find something that it's a self-enforcing loop where your clinical practice just makes you so much better at your job or at the company where you're working. So yeah, just get into it.
I'll just say, Tom, that I think you're right, especially if you need to grow the business quickly and the business requires your full attention. You have to do that. Like, you know, Joe and I've been doing this have been, you know, slowly growing this over 20 years. I think the world is a very different place, especially if you're like launching an AI healthcare company right now.
Spicier, more competitors, you know.
But it basically says, I mean, I think we're all agreeing that there are multiple paths, and some of those paths may take you to a place where you got to jump out of medicine, and others lead you to a place like Graham where you can do that juggling act, and you find that it's this beautiful flywheel. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. It's been a fantastic chat, and we talked about so much, but I will say I'm gonna keep on watching The Pit, and I'm gonna be texting you, Graham, to see, and Tom, and Joe, just to see if you're all right about where the season takes us.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Tom Meets.
Until next time, please like, subscribe, and you'll find everything about the podcast on HeidiHealth.com/podcast. In each of the show notes, you'll find the details to connect with the hosts, ourselves, Christina, and also everyone we had on the show. And until next time, thanks so much.